Welcome back to the channel where we help you master yourself so you can make the most out of life. Today I'd like to discuss with you the relationship between reality, words, spelling and magic. Let's go there. Spelling is the process of arranging particular letters in particular order to form words. Now I know, stay with me, you all know this, right? But if we dive a little bit deeper, even just as we're putting together letters to form words, each letter actually has a primordial energy behind it. Let's start with the vowels. A has a particular frequency, E has a particular frequency, I, O, U. Each of these sounds has a primordial energy signature, let's call it that. There's a certain amount of life force in each of those letters, right? And when we stop to reflect on, my background is engineering, E equals mc squared, Einstein obviously thought the universe was all energy. And even Tesla remarked that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, to think about it in terms of energy and frequency, these frequencies that we put out as letters, as we enunciate them to form words, each letter has a very potent frequency into itself. Then you weave them together to put together a word. The words are then spelled, put together and pronounced, and then interpreted generally by someone who's reading or listening. And this has functional use in our everyday linguistic requirements of being able to communicate and achieve things. But also spelling as a term, and there's a spelling for words versus spelling for magic. It has also been used for magic throughout history, and that's really what I want to talk to you guys about today. So in many cultures you'll find the belief that words have an inherent power, and this is in the West probably the most influential book that we have on Western psychology is probably the Bible. I would go as far as saying that. And in Genesis, which talks about the creation of reality, it says at the very beginning, right? At the very beginning, there was the Word. And that is a very powerful statement. It alludes to the creative power of our words. At the beginning of creation, it all began with the Word of God, right? So your words, if we are created in the image and likeness of God, has this creative power, and we can use that inherent power and harness it for a variety of purposes, both good and bad. If you have been using your words and casting spells in a less than empowered way that are not in alignment with the reality that you want to create for yourself, you can take a look at that and start to reprogram yourself by choosing the right words to create the reality that you really want to see for yourself. Now, at this point, you might go, Amrit, I just use words for communication just like everybody else does. I don't see this harming me in any way. And sure, potentially it doesn't, but maybe it does, right? When you start to think about days of the week, just think about that phrase, days of the week. Days means a day, like a calendar day, but days also shares the same sound signature and frequency as days, D-A-Y-S versus D-A-Z-E, right? D-A-Z-E also means confusion. So you're spending your time in a day or in a days, in confusion. Something to ponder. And you spend those days in a week, which is the opposite of strong. W-E-E-K versus W-E-A. So for some of you tuning in, sure, this is just semantics. For other people, you'll start to realize that these sound signatures, these frequencies are really important to be mindful and cognizant of when we're actually opening up to the power and the possibility of the creative power of our word. And it's everywhere. You wake up in the morning. Morning means earlier in the day, right? But it also means to mourn, to loss, like they're spelt differently. So when you're saying it, important to be clear on which spell you're casting. Are you coming from a sense of loss at the beginning of every single day? Something to contemplate. You may not be feeling it, but you are saying it, and just reminding you that the word has a very potent creative power. Now, I know the idea that spelling and language can be used to create magic and influence the world around us may seem a little far-fetched, but it's important to remember that language inherent of itself is one of the most powerful tools that we as human beings have. Language continues to shape all of our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, the way we see the world. Literally, the words we use have a profound impact on how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. And it even influences the decisions that we make, the choices that we make, and the actions that we end up taking. So my invitation to you is to be mindful of the words that you use. Start by taking an audit and noticing the words that you use. When I first started doing this, I started to realize that I use the word sick in place of the word good a lot. I was like, that's sick, that's so good, that's so sick. And I started to realize that I was potentially using the word sick consistently and bringing it into my field of awareness unnecessarily. When what I was actually trying to say is this is good, or this is great, or this is brilliant, and this is fantastic. Why wouldn't I use those words which actually had structural or frequential, let's call it that, frequency related integrity? The spell bit embedded within that word is much tighter and much more positive and supportive for the way that I want to view reality. So step 2 is then to start choosing those words. So first part is to get aware of the words that you're using. Just take the time to do that. And then step 2 is to start choosing a little bit more wisely. Now, if you want to go down to the nth degree on this, start looking at things like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and how your relationship with yourself is formed by what you're telling yourself, and how you can change patterns, disrupt patterns by upgrading your language, upgrading the spells that you're casting, and the way that you talk to yourself and talk to others. It's a very slippery rabbit hole to get into, but an extremely powerful one for you to come home to a really empowered place. I would almost go as far as saying, if you don't have a solid awareness of the words that you're choosing, you don't really have a solid awareness of the reality that you're creating for yourself. So becoming super conscious of the words that you're choosing and what each of the words as a frequency and energy through sound can be a really profound practice for you to become really aware of what you're creating as part of your reality. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Have you thought about words and our relationship to them and the way that our reality is constructed and the dance between human being and reality? Have you thought about spelling and magic and reality before in this way? Leave me a comment below. What are some words that you find yourself tripping up on, or words that you would like to substitute in or out? Leave a comment below, and yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. And if this conversation is bringing stuff up for you and you want to go deeper on it, here is the most watched podcast on the Inspired Evolution with Marissa Peer. Click here, check it out, and we go deep into how our words shape our reality. She's hypnotherapist to the stars, to the royals. Really incredible body of work that she talks about in this episode. I'll see you there.